And then it got really bad in 2014, where I was basically on the brink of taking my life. I then went on medication coupled with therapy, and basically without those things, I wouldn't sort of be here today. I was diagnosed initially in 2011 with depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder, and it was one of those things that I managed for probably some time before that. I didn't really understand what was going on. It was actually in the process of getting diagnosed with something physical, which actually turned out to be nothing. It was all anxiety related. And because of that, the doctor ended up going into some more stuff about what else was going on in my life, and it turns out that I'd been struggling mentally and didn't really understand what it was. And I managed that for the first couple of years really through therapy, and then it got really bad in 2014, where I was basically on the brink of taking my life. And at that point, I then went on medication coupled with therapy, and basically without those things, I wouldn't sort of be here today. And since then, it's just been a case of managing it. And it's as with all mental health issues, it's always up and down. I have times where I'm very, very low and very bad, and then I have times where I seem pretty much unaffected by it, where it's managed really well, and that's probably where we've got to. The telltale sign that basically led to my diagnosis was that I basically had chest pains. I kept thinking something was physically wrong with me. So when I went to the doctor and had everything checked out, it then turned out it was just basically heart palpitations from anxiety. And a lot of people around me, particularly my dad, who was the one that really sort of spotted it, because he was going through some stuff at the time with PTSD, and he could see that there was something not right with it. So basically the people around me started to notice it probably more than I did. I didn't really understand what was happening. I thought I was maybe just overtired or stressed. I didn't understand that there was a lot more going on, and it wasn't until I saw a doctor and he did a bit of digging into what was going on in my life that he realised there was, more to it. I think the first and foremost, if it's yourself, you need to talk to somebody, and initially it can be quite scary going to a doctor or a professional for that, but a lot of the time what can really feel like a weight coming off of you is just talking to people around you. You don't even necessarily have to go into too much depth about what's going on in your head, particularly with myself with the OCD. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't want to say to people, because to me it felt so horrific that I didn't want to say it out loud to people, but telling people that there was stuff going on in my head. So for anyone else, it's a case of that really. It's just talking to somebody, and then of course, if you really want to sort of, if you really are ready to start tackling it head on when you think there is an issue, then absolutely speak to a professional, because the professionals are the people that are going to help you. In the same way as you'd go to a doctor if you hurt your wrist or you had some other issue, your mind's exactly the same. You've got to go and talk to somebody about that, and they can essentially help fix it. It's massively helped me working here. I mean, I've said to Alan, who I work in the shop with, the number of relapses I used to have when I was at uni and in education is so much more than what it was when I started working. When I started working, it seemed to give me kind of a bigger focus, and it can be difficult. Not everybody always has a position at a place where they love, so it can be a lot more difficult for other people, whereas for me it was quite good in the sense that it led me to relapse less. The club has given me the most unbelievable support, really. I was always quite upfront about it when I got the job here. At that point, I'd been living with the issues for quite a few years, so I was comfortable telling people that I had issues, and I was very upfront about it from the word go. And I didn't really have too many issues until sort of the middle of last year, where some stuff happened, and I basically had to then take a month off. And the club could not have been more supportive, both from the people in terms of the people around me, who I directly work with, or the people supporting me in terms of financially, because that was a big worry at the time. I was worried that my wage is going to affect basically being able to pay my rent and stuff, and I can't commend the club more. They gave me every bit of support from the time that I took off to the time that I was off to actually coming back. They basically made sure that I was integrating comfortably back into the work environment, and yeah, I can't speak highly enough of everybody that supported me during that. And it's not just the people I work with, it's also people like Matt J and Jake Taylor who both reached out to me when I was going through a particularly bad time last year. But what I have noticed, even compared to when I first got diagnosed, it's talked about so much now, and that's a good thing. I mean, it's now, I mean, if I say I have mental health issues, it's not something that, I don't know, I don't get worried about telling people it now. It's alarming that it's so prevalent, but it's also a good thing that it's being talked about so much, so I don't feel that stigma. You've got to be able to break through that and talk to people, because that is ultimately the only way that you can get help, is by telling people. Because if people don't know, then how can you be helped? You have to push through that. Football, I should say, is for everybody. Obviously the demographics probably lead to it slightly more male orientated, and obviously it's because of that, you're often dealing with young men who maybe do feel hesitant to talk about their issues, or if they're going through something. So when they come to a football game on a Saturday and they see all this stuff, whether it's the Mind logos on the back or the Heads Up campaign and stuff, it really brings it to the forefront of people's minds. And when you see things like that, and then you are able to reflect maybe on your own life, where you think, this has really been bothering me for a while, and you're seeing people out on the pitch or whatever, you know, encouraging people to talk about this issue, hopefully that is the kind of thing that would give people strength, men or women, the strength to actually talk about what's going on in their lives, and that kind of support, and just making it normal. You know, like you see stuff with cancer research and you know, Cancer Awareness Month. It's exactly the same thing for mental health. It's people, you know, having that awareness sort of there right in front of you is going to make more people talk about the issues, whether it's with themselves or with other people.